It has been one of the biggest mysteries in the NFL and one of the most perplexing questions that the New York Jets fan base has had. And it is simple. What is going on with Denzel Mims? There is so much to get into on this. And I'm going to give you my opinion of the whole situation. I'm going to tell you what the coaches have said, what I think that actually mean, what's going on, and more importantly, and talk about potential future scenarios involving Denzel Mims. So let's just start it. And the biggest question was, what happened in week 2 when Jamison Crowder was left off the roster because of an injury and Denzel Mims was a healthy scratch? Now, many Jet fans and Jets media people have basically been asking Robert Saleh the same question. Well, why isn't Mims playing? And more importantly, why is Mims not suiting up? And basically, to paraphrase Robert Saleh, he has been saying that Denzel Mims doesn't know the playbook. Denzel Mims is behind on the depth chart. And more importantly, Denzel Mims isn't playing because he doesn't contribute on special teams. Let me break that down a little bit. So it's amazing because this story has just blown up to the point where you even saw Connor Hughes putting out video of Denzel Mims working with the practice squad receivers this week. And it's almost like one of those conspiracy videos where you're like, oh, this is what's actually going on behind the scenes. And when I saw that, it was very interesting to me because there's a lot that goes into this whole Denzel Mims situation. And I do think Robert Saleh is being truthful to a certain extent. Where I agree with Saleh is Denzel Mims is learning a whole new system. He's coming to a system that doesn't really fit his skill set because this is a system where you want guys that make plays after the catch, a lot of yak guys, but more importantly, great route runners. And he really wasn't a great route runner coming out of college. He has great physical tools, no question, 6'2", 4'3" speed. He fit Adam Gase's offense better than this current offense. So that's one thing. And I do think that it makes sense he got behind. He had the food poisoning issue. He lost the weight. He was late to camp this year and basically was playing catch up the whole time. So part of me agrees with Saleh and gets where Saleh is coming from. What I do not get is the following. Looking at the back end of the Jets depth chart, it made sense that Braxton Berrios makes this roster. He's a valuable slot guy. They really like him. But more importantly, he's a kick and punt returner. I have no problem with Braxton Berrios on this team. And I get Keelan Cole. He's a veteran in this league. He's proven he can play in this league. He's proven he can play in this system. I can see why at the moment he is in front of Denzel Mims. But the head scratcher to me is Jeff Smith. Now, Jeff Smith is a decent player and deserves to be on an NFL roster. But I don't see how Jeff Smith is in front of Denzel Mims, and he only played one special team snap in the game against the Patriots. So to take that roster spot away doesn't make sense. And for me, if you watch the last episode on my reaction to that game, I was saying, look, they could use Mims on the outside. I want to see them use Elijah Moore in the slot, more in that Braxton Berrios role, because I think Elijah Moore is a better receiver than Braxton Berrios, and use Mims on the outside. And there were situations like the goal line situation where they ran it 3 times. You don't have a jump ball play for Denzel Mims. So to me, I get the whole notion of getting guys that fit your scheme, and I get that. But when you have a physically talented player, it's also up to the coaching staffs to find a role for him. So the fact that Jeff Smith was suiting up before Denzel Mims is a bit alarming. And I get that the big reason Jet fans are freaking out, and Saleh, I get it. Saleh made a quote this week, which I agree with, which is, and let me paraphrase it, but he basically said, look, it doesn't matter where they're drafted. Once they're on the team, they're just a player. And I get that. There are guys that were 2nd, 3rd round picks that don't play as well, don't fit as well as guys that were picked in the 5th and 6th round. That happens all the time around the league in the NFL. I agree with that statement. But I don't think Robert Saleh gets why this has become a bigger issue. And people are saying, who aren't Jet fans, are like, why are Jet fans freaking out about Denzel Mims? To me, it's more the track record of the second round picks. I've done episodes about bad draft picks for the Jets all the time. And the Jets have notoriously had terrible second round picks. And not just bad, but like weird stuff happens to them. Like Devin Smith can't even get on the field for them. Jason Morrow, there's been so many bad second round picks. Like the only good second round picks over the last 16 years, realistically, have been David Harris and more recently been Marcus May. That's it. The Jets have whiffed on a lot of second round picks. And I get this fan base. They're rolling their eyes going, oh, great. We wasted another second round pick on a wide receiver. And I get it. Like you saw moments last year where you saw Denzel Mims make a couple big plays. And you're like, okay, he's got something. But I have to defend the Jets a little bit in this regard. And I will go back to the other side. But I get where this coaching staff is coming from. They're inheriting a roster from a different regime. And even Joe Douglas, people were killing Joe Douglas for his draft, but he was also drafting for a different head coach. It's like he's basically buying the ingredients for two different chefs. Adam Gase wanted certain ingredients for his team. Robert Saleh wanted certain ingredients for his team. So in this draft seems like a lot better fit. It seems like he's on a better page with Robert Saleh. And with Denzel Mims, people are like, oh, the Jets, like they got him. They really want him. People tend to forget the Jets traded back in that second round. They dropped 13 spots, picked up an extra pick, and they could have picked Mims the first time. But they picked him at a point where it's like, okay, they're going to take a risk on him. I don't think the Jets love that. And also he's had the injury issues. He was hurt at the beginning of the first year. Now he comes into this season, although it's not really his fault, with the food poisoning. He's been behind in both camps. And the interesting thing is there something going on behind the scenes? Did Mims do something to get out of favor with this coaching staff? It's very possible. And I got to give the Jets a lot of credit with this new regime is you're not getting the leaks like you did out of the Adam Gase. Like it just felt like you would get a leak every day about something going on with the Jets. And it's pretty tight right now in Florham Park. And I wondered, did Mims do something? Did he not? Is he taking too long to learn the playbook? There's a lot that could go into this. And the other factor, too, that isn't Mims's fault necessarily is what's happened this offseason where the Jets brought in Corey Davis. The Jets brought in Elijah Moore, who they didn't think they would get at the 34th pick in the second round. They brought in Keelan Cole. They brought in a lot of receivers. This isn't like last year where the depth chart was breadth of talent. They have some pretty decent talent on this team. And right now, I think that they are keeping Denzel Mims. And this is what I think Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are thinking. I could be wrong. But to me, if this keeps happening the next few weeks, it might be a situation where they are just trying to get him up to speed with the playbook just because he's been so far behind. But once again, I think he should be ahead of Jeff Smith. He should be on this roster. That's my opinion. I mean, I've heard this rumor, and I keep hearing this rumor from Jet fans like, oh, they're going to trade Denzel Mims. I do not see that happening. I do have an interesting trade idea, which could happen and might help Denzel Mims down the road. But let me stick to Denzel Mims now, and I'll get to that in a little bit. With Mims, you're not going to get great value. People are saying, well, the Jets got a 4th round pick back for Chris Herndon, which is what they drafted it as. But that was also a team in Minnesota that was desperate for a tight end, and Chris Herndon had great rookie tape. He looked great as a rookie. And for Minnesota, they're like, okay, we see good rookie tape. We'll take a shot on him. And so far, it hasn't really worked so far. Denzel Mims played a couple games last year. He played about half a season. And while he had moments, it wasn't like he was dominating the field. It wasn't like he had a breakout game. There's not a lot of film on him. And if you tried to trade him, you would get like a 6th round pick, maybe at best for him. That's not good business. Herndon for a 4th when you originally took him as a 4th, that's good value. Trading a second round pick for a 6 doesn't make a lot of sense. And the other factor, and this goes to the trade, is Jamison Crowder. And I understand that Crowder did not play. He might not play this weekend with the groin. But I have a little bit of a theory, which is the Jets didn't really love Crowder. This was a crowded room. They didn't outright release him, but they were saying, okay, let's see if he takes a discount. And he did. He took a discount to play with the Jets. And Joe Douglas, one of the things that people killed him on last year was not having wide receiver depth, because we all remember the Indianapolis game when it was basically the practice squad receivers. Lawrence Cager was starting as one of the top 2 Jets receivers. So for Joe Douglas, he's looking at this situation going, we haven't had any injuries so far at the wide receiver position, knock on wood. We have great depth. We have depth to the point where we're having healthy scratches that should be on the field. This is not a bad problem to have. And this is a bit of my theory on Jamison Crowder, is the Jets' goal is to get Crowder back, get Crowder healthy, put him in the slot where Braxton Berrios has been, and if he plays 2 or 3 strong games, hope that a team will trade for him, because I don't see him being in the long-term plan. They love Berrios. They love Elijah Moore. They're both younger receivers. Jamison Crowder's a free agent at the end of the year. That could be part of the plan in the long run to get another piece to build in the draft, or to maybe even get another player to help this current team. So what does that mean for Mims? I do not see the Jets trading him. They're not going to shortchange him. I think 2 things are likely to happen. And a lot of this depends on Mims too. The first thing is, if Mims comes out and complains about the playing time and demands a trade, that will be interesting, and I will be fascinated to see how the Jets handle it. Will they just put him on the roster at that point, try against him playing time, or will they abide by switches? But I think the second scenario is, and Mims hasn't requested a trade, is the Jets have sat down with him and talked with him and said, look, right now you are behind. We are going to bring you along slowly, and we don't want to put you out there until you are 100% ready to go. Now, once again, I think he's better than Jeff Smith. But they are trying to say, look, you're still a young player. You're only in your 2nd year in this league. You have a long runway in front of you. We are going to make sure that once you hit the ground, you're going to hit the ground running. I could see them doing that. And I get it. Denzel Mims doesn't fit this system, but they got to get him somehow involved, at least down the road, because the Jets don't have guys that are a playmaker like him. They don't. But in 2 or 3 weeks, if Crowder plays and they trade Crowder, and I understand that there's no spot with Crowder right now because Crowder's not even playing, but that could be an opportunity where they say, okay, now that we've moved on from Crowder, we can move some pieces around and make sure that Mims is on this roster. But it is very important to understand that when you get new regimes with coaching staffs, there's always going to be players from the previous regimes who are talented that just don't fit. And right now, it just appears that Mims is that guy for this Jet team. And it's hard because I get it. Fans don't want the Jets to feel like they've wasted a 2nd round pick again. They've wasted it on a wide receiver, that this is another one of those 2nd round busts for this team. I get why Jet fans are frustrated, and I get why Jet fans want to see Mims, because they see that this kid has some talent. Now, we're also talking about Denzel Mims. A lot of people seem to be talking about him like he's a bona fide number 1 or number 2 receiver. Like the Jets, he is a 1,000-yard receiver if he was on the field. He's not. He has a lot to prove. And you saw flashes last year. I get it. But you also need to see consistency from Denzel Mims. Now, that's hard when he's not on the field, but I get what this coaching staff is trying to do, but I also think that they have to understand being in this New York market, and they're a first-time coaching staff, and this is an opportunity for them to learn, is that even a minor story like this for a lot of teams, like if this was with the Patriots, if this was with a team anywhere else, usually in the country, if it's saying, oh, well, the second round receiver isn't playing, there'd be a little concern. But I think most fans and media would just say, okay, it's a little bit of a story. We can talk about it briefly and then move on. But when you're in New York, everything is just so much bigger. Every little story becomes a big story. And especially when your football team is struggling, when your football team is 0-2, and the media sees that you have a guy that was picked in the second round that's not playing, I get why it becomes a story. I mean, it could be worse. You could be the Giants with Kadarius Toney, who's already, after 2 games, complaining about playing time, despite having 2 catches for -2 yards. I am not kidding you. That is his actual stat line. So in some ways, Denzel Mims is already better than him because he has 40 yards this year. I mean, Denzel Mims has had more impact in 1 game than Toney has in 2 games with the Giants. It's crazy how the universe works sometimes. But this Denzel Mims story is something that we will follow, and there will be a lot coming to it. And a lot of this is going to depend on what Mims wants to do. And so far, you haven't heard from Mims. He hasn't complained about the playing time. He hasn't come out publicly and demanded a trade. And obviously, if that happens, that could change a lot of things. But this is also a 17-game schedule now. This is also only the second week of the season. There is a lot of runway ahead. And as we saw last year, injuries can happen. We could be talking about this next week. 2 receivers go down, and Denzel Mims is back in the lineup. And Denzel Mims plays well and earns his playing time. But Robert Saleh, to me, seems like a coach where he doesn't want to put players in that he feels are going to get overwhelmed. The rookies he are playing, he feels are not going to get overwhelmed. And I'm not saying Denzel Mims is going to get overwhelmed, but he could struggle with this offensive system. But once again, while I agree with what most of Saleh is saying, you also have a weapon on this team that runs a 4-3, has a great vertical, and a 6'2". And this is the other growing pains with this team. It's not that you have a rookie quarterback. It's not that you have a rookie head coach. You have a rookie offensive coordinator and a first-time play caller. There is going to be a lot of growing pains for this staff and this team. And right now, I think with Matt LaFleur, he said, once again, he's had a great practice this week. There's so much on his plate right now, really just trying to ring back in Zach Wilson, fix this protection on this offensive line, get the passing game going more consistently. That really Denzel Mims is probably on one of the furthest back burners for him right now. If he can get Zach Wilson comfortable, if he can get this offensive line more stable, then I think he can focus more on getting Mims involved in the game plan. But right now, it's just about protecting Zach Wilson and making sure Zach Wilson doesn't throw it to the other team. There's a lot on Matt LaFleur and Robert Saleh's plate right now. And I get it. Mims, it's a frustrating thing because as a Jet fan, you see the talent and you just don't want another second round bust. And I get it. I completely understand it. But you also have to be aware, too, that when there's a change in regime, there's going to be players that just don't fit. And I get the fear from Jet fans. Mims will leave the Jets. He'll, of course, go somewhere else and be a great player. But a lot of the times when players go to other teams, it's not just because the teams are better around them. It's they fit the system. Denzel Mims was drafted to fit into Adam Gase's type of system. If Robert Saleh was drafting during that draft, Denzel Mims would probably not be a member of the New York Jets. Let's just be honest. And I know Jet fans are sick and tired about hearing the rebuilding motto again. And I get it. I'm sick of it too. I'm sick of not having a competitive team for the 5th, 6th year in a row, not having continuity for 10 years. It's rough. I get it. But we have to understand that unlike the other previous regimes where you had some leftovers, and I get Joe Douglas is leftover, but really this is the first time where you have torn everything down to the studs at the same time with a rookie quarterback, a plethora of rookies on the roster, one of the youngest rosters in the NFL, a rookie head coach, a rookie offensive coordinator, a rookie play caller, rookie quarterback. One of your number one receivers is a rookie. One of your best offensive linemen is a rookie. There's going to be growing pains this season, and it's going to be tough, and there's going to be days where you're going to pull your hair out as a Jet fan saying, what the heck are they doing? And I get all of that, and I get that you're frustrated that Denzel Mims is playing, and I am too, because I think he can help this team, not on every down, but there's certain situations where having a guy like Mims makes a lot of sense. But it will be fascinating to see how the Jets handle it. And seeing how, if this culture has changed. Because what if Mims isn't active for a couple games but doesn't want to be traded? In the old Adam Gase culture, Denzel Mims would have not played on Sunday, and probably Sunday night would have said, get me out of New York this second. So this will be something we will watch. We will keep our eye on. We will follow up with you. But this is going to be telling how Joe Douglas, Robert Sal, this front office handled the situation, and also how they really handled the receivers the next couple weeks. Because once again, Rich Cimini feels that this team is going to move on from Jamison Crowder before the deadline. And I think that is a likely scenario. And if that happens, that opens up a spot. But for now, Denzel Mims is behind once again because of an unfortunate injury or sickness in this case in training camp. And that has hurt his development. And for all we know, this might be a couple of awkward weeks where he's not in the lineup. But for all we know, in a couple of weeks, he gets back in the lineup, he knows the playbook, and he can make an impact. You don't know. There's so many different ways this story can go, but we're going to follow it at every turn. That's going to do it for this episode of Rich Sports Talk. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest New York Jets content. And make sure to comment below on what you would like us to talk about in the future. You guys are everything. And make sure you hit that like button. It's only going to help us get out to more Jet fans. And we want to hear from all you Jet fans. You're a part of this community. We want to get your reactions, how you're feeling, and what your thoughts are on Denzel Mims. Are you pro-free Mims? We want to hear it. Only here on Rich Sports Talk.